Wow, what a Wednesday. It's a Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's Rumor and Innuendo. I'm Dominic D'Angelo of AdFreeShows.com, SEScoops.com, and BrassRingMedia.com. Per usual, I'm here with Mr. Robert Karplis, WE Creative _ish. And now, per usual, every Wednesday, me and Robert are both here with Mr. Justin Barrasso of Undisputed. Justin, welcome back, man. Good to have you here again.
Great to be back. Post 4th of July. I thought the summer moves too quickly after the 4th, but hope you guys had a nice 4th.
Yeah, no, summer flies by. I've got all my fingers intact here, so we're doing great. I love that you have a legal pad with you. This is a man who has come prepared. Dom, take notes.
Ready to go.
I do need to take notes because literally I just send the rundown and I'm like, well, where's the window? Where's the tab? I need to write stuff down more.
Well, to be fair, you did write down some interesting stuff for us to chat about today as we get a chance to Don't do it, Dom. I was going to say we're going to preview. Just we have a guest. Let's behave. Speaking of guests, we're going to say hi to some of the folks joining us in the chat. E shockingly says, "What's up?" Great gimmick. Willie Thornbrew says John Cena wants to ruin wrestling. He should help Goldberg win the title. Are we sure Willie's not Bret Hart?
Oh man, that's a
very possible. Devin Dowling throwing out an AEO. Wrestling Old Head says, "Nice to see the new triple threat. Happy Wednesday." Maybe we got to get Lance Storm here. That's a good one. And then Ron Ward asking, anybody else having Brady Bunch rerun vibes? That may be a shot at Justin Barrasso's background, which I fully appreciate. Justin is coming to us live from what appears to be a dungeon in the 1970s. The way it's lit, I think
it's the boxes were up and down.
That's what I was thinking, because really could look around.
Could be that. I think it's the fact that you have this eternal sunshine of the spotless mind thing going on behind you, where part of it is slowly darkening, like we're erasing you from existence. But something we can't erase from existence. Something we can't erase from existence is Tony Khan and his creative control, which he had some thoughts on, Mr. D'Angelo.
Oh, yes. So if you're not familiar on social media, Sean Ross Sapp has been going back and forth about the reports of creative control and saying that's not true. And then the whole social media contingency has been making a big stink about it. So he asked Tony Khan during the media call about, does Mercedes Moné have creative control? And Tony had the following to say. He says, I'm the only person with creative control over the show. He said, I've had final say since day one of AEW. I've had final creative control since the beginning of the company. Then Khan went on to explain how he listens to talent's ideas. However, he won't do them if he doesn't feel 100% about it. Khan went on to praise Jennifer Peppermint for her work with Mercedes and RJ City, friend of the show, for writing for Tony Storm. He also reiterated that the idea that of a talent like Monet having creative control because she's on the show so much is unfounded. It's kind of a delicate line in certain ways, I think. Yeah, they don't have creative control, but I'm sure they have a heavy influence. But Robert and Justin, your thoughts. Robert, I guess let's start with you first.
I don't think Tony Khan knows what words mean. Is the politest way that I can put this. From what I have heard from individuals that I've intimated with, Tony, yes, has final say in terms of what he believes creative control is, but he does not seem to exert it in a way where he stops those individuals who have creative control from essentially doing what they want with a blank check. So there was the siloed world of AEW where, Tony has the creative control of yes, no, maybe so, but it's more of a rubber stamp when it comes to a Jon Moxley, a Chris Jericho, a Bryan Danielson, a Young Bucks, a Kenny Omega.
A Mercedes Moné.
Mercedes Moné.
I think both things can be true. I think that, of course, I think Tony was being honest, and Sean asked the right question. Tony can have final say. And he does, but that doesn't mean there's significant input. I think Robert hit the nail on the head, particularly, and that's not with every performer on the roster. I'm a huge Mark Briscoe fan. I don't think he's calling his shots, but I do think so when there's the bigger the star involved. So I think both things can be true.
Robert, does Marty have creative control over your household?
Yes, Marty is who I answer to here. He wanted to join. He's all excited that Justin Barrasso's here. There's a new guest. There's a new presence, and he wants to be here to listen to it. What I find so funny about Tony addressing this and the answer is that it is still so much of a question that people are almost giving him an out, that your show seems so erratic and so disconnected that clearly there is not a single rudder. Because if this is your unified vision, what are you doing here, man?
Right. I mean, there's a lot too to think about when it comes to, yeah, Tony does have the final yes or no on things. But I mean, if you look back and look at some of the things that has happened on AEW programming, like the Moxley spiked back spot, I don't know if Tony was like, hey, let's do that and see what happens. I just could not fathom something like that. So, yeah.
Well, we've seen it with a number of people. I mean, look, the guy that I will always praise above all others is MJF, and MJF has had a few instances that feel like he kind of went into business for himself. Remember the moment where he grabbed a drink and threw it on a kid? I don't think Tony was approving that, and the fact that these folks feel free enough to just kind of do what they feel at certain points in time means there isn't that iron claw. You know, part of what led to the current wrestling landscape of CM Punk and WWE is a testament to Tony not having creative control. Hangman Page cutting the promo that he did, CM Punk cutting the promo he did, a lot of that sort of internal iron claw issue is why people tend to question, is there creative control? Is there a single person at the helm?
Mm-hmm.
That also is part of the fabric of AEW. If you enjoy it, it's a different product than WWE. And I think that's a positive. Obviously, not everything's a positive on either side, but again, I think that you need competition. You need a second major brand, and it should be different.
Yeah, it should. And, you know, like the aspect of giving your talent a little bit more creative freedom to, like, hey, yeah, I do have the final say of the overall creative process of it all. But if they go out and say stuff on the mic or do different things, or, yeah, I mean, that could be a good or bad thing in a lot of ways. But to Justin's point, I think that can add a little bit more alternative edge to it in certain ways at the same time. So.
Mercedes, I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, no, I'm all for that. That yes, you can have different flavors of ice cream. You can have different iterations of the overall theme. You know, as someone who grew up in the Attitude Era, WWF offered something different from WCW, which offers something way different from ECW. And I loved what ECW did, but I didn't necessarily need to see that replicated across the board. Sorry, Justin.
No, to me, that's what Tony, and they're still figuring it out. You know, we're in what, year 5, year 6 of AEW?
Year 6, yeah.
They want to be partially ECW with the WCW bankroll. They're still figuring out who they are as a brand. I actually think Saturday will help them. Their pay-per-views usually tend to help just because their wrestling's so good. But I'll be curious where Mercedes, going back to her, where she finishes the show on Saturday. I don't envision a scenario where she loses, especially with only Tony's belt on the line, Tony Storm's belt. I just don't know. Do you open the show with that match? Do you put Tony typically books like an old New Japan show with the big 3 last? I don't know where he puts that women's title match.
How would you do it? How would you guys do it?
Ooh, it's tough. I'd have to really take a look at the card and see what's going to draw the biggest traction. Because to Justin's point, we'll do previews of All In on Friday in depth. I agree with him that I don't see Tony Storm winning. I don't know that you want to open your show with a downer moment where you have a heel win, but you do want to bolster it up at some point where it doesn't feel like just another match on this card. And AEW pay-per-views do tend to go a little lengthy, and I feel like they are going to give Tony and Mercedes a lot of time, but you can't put it too close to the Kenny Omega Kazuchika Okada match, and you don't want to put it right before your main event. So it's going to be a little bit of pacing and an issue. Anyone who thinks that Mercedes has had plenary control over her entire creative has not been paying attention to AEW programming.
No.
Has Tony Khan confirmed that the main event is Moxley Hangman?
I don't think it did get confirmed yet. No.
Because I just, again, to me, and it depends on the finish. If Hangman wins, I could see that closing. And I know you said you guys are going to get into it in more depth on Friday. But Okada and Omega, it's a match 7 years in the making. I just don't see how that doesn't close the show, especially with you have the happy ending there. Kenny's winning.
Oh, no, Justin.
Oh,
Bless your heart, Justin. But we're getting into it now. I don't see a universe in which Kenny Omega is winning the AEW morphed together, fused title.
Mighty Morphin title.
Sure. I think between Kenny talking about how, hey man, I don't know how much time I got left. He's Danny Glover and Lethal Weapon at this point, and the fact that there is a lot more longevity in Okada being sort of the B show champion or whatever this title is going to be. The feel good moment most likely is going to be Hangman Page winning in this Texas death match with a million folks interfering.
WrestleMania 30 style.
Yeah, WrestleMania 30 style. Darby coming back from Everest with a Yeti to help this, especially given the Ospreay Swerve stipulation of, they can't challenge the title for a year, and in a year from now, All In's going to be in England, where Will Ospreay winning the title would feel like a big deal, and in that interim year, you can build up Hangman without people wondering, hey, why is Swerve and Will not going after this guy? Like, they may have over-telegraphed this.
So I think the Bucks do win this, and I think that we saw the tell where Swerve and Ospreay were arguing in the ring or were on the same page. But I'm going to respectfully disagree. I think Moxley retains the title. I don't think you can end with that moment. I think we agree that Mercedes wins. I think you close with Kenny. Kenny's their guy. I think if this match took place in the Tokyo Dome, which I wouldn't be shocked if it does come January, I think Okada wins, but I think Kenny is victorious on Saturday.
Well, Justin, let me follow up. Do you think that would be the right move to have Moxley win? Or do you think that's just the decision they're making and it's going to be prolonging this bad Death Riders angle going on?
I don't know where you go with Hangman if he loses.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a conundrum for sure. But if Darby's the plan, and there's a chance for surprises, right? If Darby's when Bryan loses the belt, they pan to Darby's face as the pay-per-view's closing. If he's the plan, if he's still the plan, and he comes back on Saturday, I would think Adam Copeland, not that he's a world title contender right now, but I would think Copeland comes back on Saturday too. I don't know. Saturday's going to fill in a lot of details, fill a lot of the gaps, but I still think Darby's the guy.
I would be very hesitant to go with Darby as the guy to bring down Moxley for a couple of reasons. I think number one, the fact that Darby chose to go climb Everest at a point in time where he should have been main eventing their WrestleMania is very telling about where Darby's priorities are. Can you imagine going into WrestleMania 14 where you've got Steve Austin poised to win the Rumble and he goes, I'm going to do an ATV tour of Rio de Janeiro. We're not going to put the title on me. Like, when you have your moment, your opportunity, that should be your singular priority. I don't know that Darby plays softball, but there's a Sid Vicious vibe going on with him. Whereas if Jon Moxley is still the AEW World Champion coming out of a stadium show, that's not a good feel to that Dynamite. Nobody is excited about what he's doing. Nobody wants to see it. You can very easily have Darby be the surprise to cost Moxley the title and do a Moxley Darby match, and then let Hangman go and be the AEW World Champion.
To me, it's all about placement. If that closes the show, Hangman wins the belt. I also wonder if there's a tell, and maybe we're looking. Shame on us for analyzing this too closely. The Texas Death Match, Moxley owes him one. Moxley, I'll mention too. And this did not sway my judgment. If you listen to our High Above Ringside on Undisputed with Francis Conley and I, we've been talking about this for weeks. But Moxley is the lead interview today in the Week in Wrestling column, which we'll post in probably the next hour. But I don't know. I think that he gets his win back in the Texas Death Match. I think Mox anywhere but the main event, Mox retains.
Oh, absolutely. But I don't see knowing how Tony views wrestling. He views his world title is your main event. That is your show closer, and this is your WrestleMania. I don't see a world in which he doesn't let it main event. I don't see a world in which Moxley doesn't let it main event. When that is your centerpiece, that is your most important thing that you have as a company. The thing that I have floated, by the way, in terms of how I would love to see this show finish, if I'm perfectly honest, because I want to move away from Moxley and the Death Riders, is Hangman wins, happy, happy, joy, joy. MJF cashes in the Casino Gauntlet and wins the title. And now it's MJF and the Hurt Syndicate feuding with Hangman. Brand new story going forward on Wednesday.
And it's not, the goal is not to beat WWE necessarily, but that's, to me,
you beat them to the Seth Rollins punch that you're going to get at SummerSlam.
100%. Yes.
So that accomplishes a lot.
Being a happy ending, though. Are you okay with it not being a happy ending? MJF winning the title, so it's like, okay.
I think the happy ending is
Hangman.
Moxley is not champion anymore.
Yeah.
And Hangman has won it, and now there is a new trajectory, whether that is Hangman rides off into the sunset, and now we get to see his new hero quest going forward, or WWE learns the Cody lesson of when you finish your story, you better have a new one lined up, or else you better hope that he's going to wrestle AJ in France and get the hottest crowd of all time.
Right.
Which that crowd was amazing. I'm going to, we want to put some Back to the Future stipulations here, but I think
Great Scott, do it.
There is more Death Rider story for you with the world title post all in. That's just a gut feel. That's not insider info, but I'll be surprised if Mox drops the belt. But if it's in the main event, I'll be a lot less surprised. Matt, to me, it's how this card shakes out will tell us a lot.
I still am, I've said it like a broken record to the point where it should be its own sponsored segment. The fact that this wasn't Ospreay and Moxley is baffling. The AEW needs to turn the page. We're saying the alternative. The Moxley stuff has been such a deterrent on them becoming the alternative and feeling different and new and fresh for so long. And this Death Rider storyline has gone absolutely nowhere, to the point where the things that we thought were intriguing, like why are the Young Bucks shredding documents? What's really in the briefcase? They just blew it off. They were just like, oh no, it's expense reports. And there clearly was not a long-term story. And AEW has shown us with, the Devil, they don't do long-term storylines well. But you have a guy in Ospreay who absolutely is lightning in a bottle for them. And the idea that you could have done Hangman and Swerve, unlikely allies who unite to go up against the Young Bucks, and then put in this 1-year contract stipulation where one of these guys can screw the other one over and assure mutual destruction. That's a far more intriguing story across the board. Everything just feels very miscast. But if you have Hangman lose here, how is this not Lex Luger?
That's I don't know what you do with Hangman if he doesn't win. And I think if anybody could make it work, it's Hangman. But I think that's the issue, right? That's the problem. I don't know how if Hangman loses on Saturday, it's a steep fall. I do think AEW learned their lesson too with the 1-year stipulation, which is kind of an odd stipulation.
It is.
But they learned from the Cody lesson.
Yes.
Which is good.
This is an oddly specific stipulation that I think
yes.
is why Okada wins, because then you can have Swerve go after the Okada title.
True.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if Kenny doesn't win. Kenny wrestles so much less now, but I don't know. To me, so I guess I'm looking a few steps in a different direction, but I think Kenny's the guy to wrestle Zack Sabre Jr. at Forbidden Door. If that's the case, I think he wins that match. I don't think Sabre's the long-term champion after beating Goto. I don't know. I think there's a lot of moving pieces here, but we'll get a much better sense on Saturday.
I think there are. I'm curious because Kenny has been on sort of a revenge tour. Okada doesn't feel like the guy that's going to pay off that redemption of sort of what happened versus him wanting to get revenge on the Young Bucks. And given that Kota Ibushi is back, reuniting the Golden Lovers to go after the Young Bucks kind of feels like a decent pivot. And then you still free Okada up to make this merge together title feel like their Collision World title.
I line more with Justin, I think, on this. I do think Kenny would win this. And I think it then will perpetuate Okada to maybe venture off from this personality he's had, and this kind of, it'll give him a new life, so to speak. And I think AEW really needs that if they want to maximize the most out of what they've gotten out of Okada so far, because they haven't done nearly enough with him.
I'll ask you both, why shift Okada from the Bucks to Don Callis? And I do think Callis is very talented.
I don't know, Robert.
I think the problem is Okada was getting a babyface reaction. I think bitch got over. I think the flicking off the camera got over, and no one's going to cheer for Don Callis. And tying it into the Don Callis Kenny Omega story frees up the Bucks to then go after Ospreay and Swerve. But the problem with Kenny winning is if Kenny wins and Hangman wins, both of your world champions now are baby faces, and I don't think they have a strong enough heel roster to now go after both of those titles. Okada as a heel world champion, which this title should be their new world title, their new B-show world title, it's now a chance for Okada to defend against a top quality tier of wrestler versus whoever he was challenging with for the Continental title.
Well, Devin Downey here makes a good point. Okada, the double champ with Callis, perfect for Takeshita to turn face and challenge him. What do you think of that?
Agreed.
He's going away for a while, though. This is it for him, right? I think that's a great point. But Takeshita goes away for the G1.
Yeah, I think when Takeshita does come back,
it makes a lot of sense.
There's a chance for that. I think that Tony knows that, and I've said this a lot, I think AEW does need a roster split. I think that if Tony is the sole creative control, which is what he's claimed, and that's great. You have a lot of stars, but because they're all interchangeable to Dynamite or Collision, you're not focused on one roster or another. And you lose a lot of guys who get momentum and then vanish.
Oh,
so, what? Oh, sorry, guys. No, yeah. What I was saying was when you don't have that split, you lose, like Harley Cameron was getting a lot of momentum, and then she kind of wasn't on TV. Injured or not, she's somebody you could still absolutely be using. FTR tends to get relegated to Collision versus being Collision exclusive. If you have talents that are Dynamite exclusive, Collision exclusive, and they're only on one show or another, like an Adam Cole or a Danny Garcia, it feels more focused and concentrated versus your A-stars are always on Dynamite, everyone left over is on Collision, and we don't necessarily care about Collision. Or you make Okada the Collision world champion, and now there's an interesting reason to tune in every single week.
I know we're going off the rails with the show, but
no, that's fine. It looks like Justin had a thought on that.
Yeah,
I love going off the rails.
Okay,
and I want to get to Goldberg too, and before I want to get to Charlotte Flair too before we break. But I could talk about the all-in structure. To me, it's if you close, it depends. If Moxley wins, he's winning. I would say mid-card, like middle of the show, and then you close with Kenny. If that's not the case, if Kenny's anywhere but the main event, then I would think that, like you said, the world title closes. So I don't know where you put Mercedes. Like you said, is that the right open for you? I don't know. That's a tough.
Know, but and I think there has to be some questions around the condition of Kenny and Okada. Those have such high expectations. Yes. that match. You know, we just saw Punk and Cena, and we have the memories of what those matches were versus what we got. Anything other than a 17-star match is going to feel a little bit like diminished returns. I know that Jim Ross is pushing that he wants to do the commentary for this. You could have a feel-good moment of JR coming out and doing commentary for it, and that's going to erase any potential sins. But we are going to shift to Goldberg because obviously
that's a long match, though, Robert, for Jim. You assume that's a 40-minute match at least, right?
It is, but you can let him nap during certain parts of it, and I think that's fine. But you know, with Goldberg this weekend, guys, WWE is running it back with Saturday night's main event and Evolution, and my bookie has odds on every match. Gunther's a heavy favorite over Goldberg, but stranger things have happened in that ring. Rollins versus LA Knight, the crowd's behind Knight, but he is still a plus 350 underdog, with Seth being positioned as a main guy for the WWE. And at my bookie, you're not just betting winners. You're betting entrances, turns, shock wins, and getting paid when you read the story right. Sign up with code RUMOR, and we'll back you up on your first deposit. $100 gets you 50 extra. $200 gets you a Benjamin. Happy birthday, Shelton Benjamin, by the way. What you do with that money is up to you. 2 shows, 1 weekend. Bet smart, cash in only at mybookie.com. Check it out. The mybookie.website/join with rumor. I'm excited about this. I'm looking forward to making some money. And look, I have been the Nostradamus of this show for quite some time here, guys. I have been spoiling shows all year inadvertently. But Goldberg Gunther is one where I think we can feel pretty confident on that finish, Justin. But what do you want to talk about with Mr. Bill G?
I'm intrigued.
I'm not sure, and maybe I'm just of the age where Monday nights where you were trying to videotape and go back and forth, and it was with a VCR. And Goldberg's still special, and obviously we saw the Saudi match with Taker, and we've seen the Brett injury, and there's been a lot of low points too, but there's something about Goldberg that still works. I thought that segment on Raw was about as good as you could get out of Bill. And to Gunther's credit, he's making it work too, but like knocking the mic out of his hand, calling him a chicken shit at the end off mic, like the whole thing works so well. I'm excited for that match. And granted, I don't know what it's going to go up against if All In's still running. So it'll be very different than anything we see at All In. I don't mind. I want something different. Like, give me a 4 or 5 minute match. I hope
All In starts, I think, at like 1 o'clock, right?
3 Eastern.
I think it's 3. Is it
3.
Eastern Standard Time, or that would be Central Time? Which
3 Eastern, I believe.
Eastern, okay.
So is it possible there's still a 7-hour show? Seems ambitious.
Yeah, that seems a little long, right?
It's going to be a long one.
It will.
Whatever it may be. Pack a lunch, but. So you see a world where there's a chance that Goldberg wins?
No, but because Vince isn't there, but only because it's Goldberg. Maybe I do. You can have Jey Uso cost of the match. It doesn't make sense because Jey just got tsunami'd, through the ring on Monday.
Yeah, Jay's dead. Sammy's dead. I don't see a world in which they beat Gunther twice for the world title because he is then in Hangman territory. Like, there is no man's land. Like, you may as well put the El Grande Americano mask on that guy.
I don't know. I think you could have Goldberg win in some form or fashion, and then you just rerun it back at SummerSlam, and then that's where Goldberg ends his career. Gunther wins the title back. I think Gunther is Teflon enough to carry on. I think he's got enough charisma and personality to make it work. I
just find it odd that they haven't put a retirement stipulation. Like, if you lose, like, why is he getting a title? 7 out of his last 10 matches.
They essentially said this is his last match, and then Cole had to basically throw it out there. Like, I asked Bill, like, you said this is your last match. What happens if you win? Oh, it's a good point. Like, this did not need the title.
Agreed.
This could have very well been, because you need to send Goldberg off in some way happy, because he's not going to look weak in front of his son. So it's going to maybe be Gunther wins and then Goldberg spear jackhammer after to send the crowd home mildly happy. I would be terrified of letting a valuable property like Gunther take a jackhammer from Bill. We'll see. Or you throw someone else out there. Someone else costs Phil, and then they're the one that gets flattened.
Bring Ludwig Kaiser out and have him be something. I agree. I think Gunther wins, but
is it weird Ludwig Kaiser hasn't been on TV in many
really
weeks?
Strange, right? I
miss that guy.
I wonder what happened to him.
Really talented.
On Saturday.
You wanted to talk about Charlotte Flair too. What were your thoughts on that?
If you haven't read, anyone listening, watching, if you haven't read the Players Tribune from Charlotte Flair, it's sort of odd to say it's written by Charlotte Flair because it's really written by Ashley Flair. It is unlike anything I've ever read in wrestling. It goes into her doubts, her vulnerabilities, her fears, her fertility issues, it's a very brave, courageous piece of writing. It covers a lot of wrestling too. It felt like a mini version of her book. It's just even better. I don't know if there'll be a reaction. Like, I don't know how much of the audience in the crowd reads the Players Tribune, but it's just a look into her soul. What a fan favorite. Like, when you read that piece, it is well worth the read. It's really a look into Ashley's soul, and she does not hold back. There's no topic, no stone left unturned.
How about that? I'll definitely have to give that a read.
I have not read it. I'm intrigued to read it. she is someone who, it always strikes me as funny, does not understand that she is a heel and does not embrace that she is a heel and could make so much money as a pure heel. It is odd.
So
Yeah,
she goes into that. She goes in. So it's funny that you say that. That's what you open with. Like that's the crux. That's the focal point of the piece. Ashley and Charlotte are so different to the point of like it's not a good thing. So and she sees it like what you just said. So that's the fact. It's interesting that she can be so introspective.
I'm curious to read that, and there's always something to read on Wednesdays, Justin.
The Week in Wrestling. We're back today with a new column. It looks at Jon Moxley's title run. He goes into focuses really his discussion on Hangman Page. I spent a little bit of time writing about Goldberg and just the week, what you may have missed, because there's so much wrestling out there. So that's The Week in Wrestling on undisputed.substack.com. Should post within the next, I'd say, 60 minutes.
Yeah, give it a read, everybody. Check it out, Justin. We're always happy to have you here on a Wednesday. Break things down, and we cover a lot. We cover a lot of ground here in 30 minutes. So, but yes, Robert, you and Scott should be probably recording on Working Stiff coming up, and I would be interested to see what you guys take on Charlotte Flair's article as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to read that and give my take on that. But no, myself and Scott Chaplin will be recording a Working Stiff tomorrow, where we talk all things Saturday night's main event. Talk all things women's evolution, and obviously preview All In, which hopefully will not take as long as watching All In, which is going to be a Herculean effort this weekend, man. Make sure you hydrate for it, and we will be back as we are every Monday through Friday at noon Eastern on, dare I say, a plethora of platforms, including WWE Creative_ish X account, the @Dominic D'Angelo X account, the @SE Scoops X account, and on YouTube on Rumor and Innuendo and ad-free shows. So on behalf of the Brady man himself, Justin Barrasso, and the man too afraid to wear sleeves, Dominic D'Angelo, I'm Robert Karpolis. Best of luck in your future endeavors.
You just call me a jacked Robert Reed.